Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're going to be testing out the brand new Community Day move on Kanto SLOWBRO in the Ultra League, Surf. Now SLOWBRO is a Water and Psychic type Pokemon, and the moveset that I tested it out with was Water Gun as the fast move, with Legacy Surf and Ice Beam as the charge moves, although in the future I'm probably going to run Psychic instead of Ice Beam. I tested it out with a team consisting of a Pidgeot lead and Defense Deoxys safe switch. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out if XL Surf SLOWBRO is worth the investment for the Ultra League. Hopping into the first match, leading into a Pidgeot mirror. My opponent does have the best Buddy Boost equipped on their Pidgeot, meaning they're going to win CMP in this matchup. It's a bit unfortunate, but the good news is, odds are we're probably just trading debuffs at first, so CMP tie won't end up being a massive problem. They debuff me, I debuff them, and now that I've debuffed them, a Brave Bird is not going to be lethal. So I'm just going to keep farming up here. I'm going to not throw my energy. I'm going to save it for later and save switch into Deoxys, because if they have a ghost type like a Trevenant in the back, I need to lure it out. I switch in Deoxys, my opponent is not switching out, which means not only do they not have a ghost type, but they must be pretty weak in the back. They're going to lower my attack with a Feather Dance and send in Obstagoon, so they are very clearly weak in the back. Obstagoon, even despite the fact that I'm 2 stages debuffed, still taking some solid damage from the counters. Deoxys farming up and going to fire off a Rock Slide. This is going to be debuffed, so Obstagoon going to be able to tank it fairly well. But the nice thing is, I live a Night Slash from here, so I'm not going to shield this. Opponent baits with an Obstruct. Obstruct does not do a lot of damage, but it's going to debuff my defense while raising theirs. I'm now going for Rock Slide number 3. Rock Slide's basically dealing no damage. Obstagoon able to reach one final move. I'm going to let this go and just go for energy on SLOWBRO. They get the boost. SLOWBRO gets the farm down. What do they have in the bag? They have Cobalion, and this is a very good matchup for SLOWBRO. They build up to the Stone Edge. I pretty comfortably tank, so I'm going to let it go. Opponent baits with a Sacred Sword, and then goes for another Sacred Sword, just to try and get some chip damage here. But XL SLOWBRO does have some pretty decent bulk to it, so I'm going to be able to absorb that damage relatively easily, and now I can start using the new Calm Day move of Surf. Surf just allows SLOWBRO to get to charge moves a lot faster, as previously it would have to build up to either an Ice Beam or a Psychic. They build up to a potential Stone Edge. I will respect it with a shield. I get baited yet again, but I'm going to be able to grab the final shield here with Surf. And keep in mind, I still have Brave Bird on Pidgeot. Opponent is going to switch in their Pidgeot, trying to make it to a move, but SLOWBRO is too spammy now with Surf. Surf is going to KO. I can combo play with the Brave Bird, but the opponent concedes the match. Hopping into the next match, leading Pidgeot into Shadow Charizard. I'm going to stay in this matchup to start with and fire off a Feather Dance. My goal is I want to try and debuff my opponent to force them to switch out, so I can later realign that Charizard onto my SLOWBRO. My opponent baits with a Dragon Claw, and unfortunately I do commit the shield. I fire off the Feather Dance, go to save switch into Deoxys, and it's a simultaneous save switch, Deoxys into Walrein. This is a dominating matchup for Deoxys in the Ultra League. Deoxys is simply too tanky, and the Icicle Spears from Walrein are not going to be doing nearly enough damage. They're going to fire off Icicle Spear number 1. Deoxys tanks it like it's nothing. They're going for Icicle Spear number 2. They can even make it to a third one. Deoxys just simply does not care. They will make one final move. Again, Deoxys does not have to shield this. I'm going to leave with a ton of energy, which is quite nice. In the back, opponent has Trevenant, and this game is done. I can fire off as many Psycho Boosts as I can possibly get to with the Deoxys, but I have Pidgeot to align onto the Trevenant, and the SLOWBRO to shut down the Charizard. I'm going to send in Pidgeot. In comes Charizard. I bring in SLOWBRO. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Picking up a terrible lead in the next match, Pidgeot into Galarian Stunfisk. I'm going to need to immediately save switch out of here, and I'm going to send in Deoxys. The counters will add up quite a bit here, but unfortunately, Deoxys' charge moves are basically useless going up against the Stunfisk. Rock Slide does barely anything, and they can hit for some pretty significant neutral damage with Earthquake. Earthquake is going to land. Opponent now going to send in their own defense Deoxys, and since they have a pretty significant health advantage, I'm not going to be able to take switch from them. So at this point, my play is just to try and take advantage of the desync switch timers. I go for the Rock Slide. I do lose CMP. My opponent fires off a Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt is going to land. I'm going to return fire with the Rock Slide, and then I'm going to look to pivot back into the Pidgeot here. In comes the Pidgeot. Pidgeot is going to get outpaced by the Deoxys since Deoxys had overfarmed. But at this point, I know that my Pidgeot is going to get stuck against the Stunfisk, so I'm not really going to be shielding. I'm going to overfarm, fire off the Brave Bird, and Brave Bird will be lethal here. Brave Bird is going to KO Deoxys in the back. Opponent has a Tentacruel, and that is not great news for me because I'm running Ice Beam on Slowbro, not Psychic. This was one of the first matches where I started thinking, man, I really wish that I had Psychic. Opponent forced the switch into the Stunfisk because, importantly, they were debuffed by the Feather Dance. I will commit the shield. Opponent is going to Rock Slide bait me, and this is only another Rock Slide, so I'm just going to let this go. I can pretty comfortably take a Rock Slide here. I'm going to farm up, looking to try and farm down, but I just cannot, so I'm going to fire off the last second Surf. Surf is going to be lethal, and suddenly, I'm seeing a potential win condition. I don't have Psychic, but my opponent doesn't know that. So if I can fire off 2 Surfs, basically baiting a Psychic that I don't have, and then get a shield, hopefully I can make it to a Psycho Boost with Deoxys. They fire off the Scald. Scald is, of course, going to be resisted, and now I desperately need them to shield here. Surf gets the shield, in comes Deoxys. Deoxys farming up, Tentacruel fires off a charge move. I should have more than 1 HP here, so I can shield and make it to the Psycho Boost. The question is this going to be enough to KO? Psycho Boost barely is not. In comes the Slowbro, but the Tentacruel with 1 HP makes it to the Scald, takes out the Slowbro as we lose a heartbreaking game. Moving into the next match, switching Pidgeot into Shadow Nidoqueen. Nidoqueen was once absolutely everywhere in the Great League and the Ultra League, but since the nerf, it has basically disappeared. My opponent is going straight for the Poison Fang. I'm going to let that through, and since I'm debuffed, I'm just going straight for the Brave Bird here. Do they respect it? They do not! I'm going to switch into Deoxys. My opponent sends in Wall Rain, and they concede the match. Moving into the next match, leading Pidgeot into another Charizard. Same game plan as before, I'm going to be spamming out some Feather Dance debuffs to try and inspire them to switch out, so that way I can align the Charizard onto my Slowbro in the endgame, so Slowbro can absolutely feast. Blast Burn is going to get shielded. I'm going to fire back with the Feather Dance. Feather Dance gets a shield from my opponent. They save switch into Cresselia, and I can just outpace, fire off the Feather Dance, and then send in my Deoxys. Unfortunately here, I did get a bit greedy in terms of energy. I should have just brought in Deoxys as soon as I debuffed, but I decided I wanted to try and leave with a Brave Bird banked, so I'm going to tank the debuffed Moonblast, bank a Brave Bird, and then send in Deoxys. Either way, I'm still in a very nice spot here. My plan with Deoxys is I'm just going to farm up to back-to-back Rock Slides, throw 1, and then farm back up to the back-to-back Rock Slides. This way, if at any point, since our timers are desynced, my opponent sends back in the Charizard, I'm going to have a Rock Slide ready and waiting to crush the Zard. I'm firing off a Rock Slide here. Rock Slide is going to land onto Cresselia. Cress farming up. In comes the Charizard, and it is instantly greeted with a Rock Slide. Rock Slide KOs the Charizard. Back in comes Cresselia. Cresselia, however, has now reset that attack debuff by switching out, meaning that Moonblast is now going to do a lot more damage, but I should still be in a very nice spot here. I'm going to fire off the Rock Slide. This will get the Cresselia very low. Cress will be forced to throw energy to KO, and then honestly, I can wing attack down with Pidgeot, and once I Feather Dance whatever's in back, the game should basically be over. I farm down in the back. It's Virizion. I'm going to Feather Dance, and then I'm going to Ice Beam with Slowbro. In comes the Slowbro, and the opponent concedes the match. Nightmare lead in the next match, Pidgeot into Aurorus. I do have 2 better responses in the back, so I save switch into Deoxys, and my opponent responds with Trevenant. I definitely needed to bait out Trevenant, but this is still not a fabulous spot for me to be in, as I have no way of taking switch. All I have to do is hope that by baiting out Trevenant, that's going to free up Slowbro in the back. Here, I intentionally didn't throw my energy on Deoxys because I actually wanted an increased farm on the Pidgeot. Pidgeot is going to get to farm down and leave with so much energy loaded here, and there's just nothing Trevenant can really do. Trev firing off Seed Bomb after Seed Bomb in this matchup. They go for Seed Bomb number 2. Pidgeot tanks it, gets the full farm down, and I have to hope that Slowbro is good versus whatever they have in the back, but it's going to be Chestnut, and unfortunately, things are looking very dire here. I think my only win con is to try and stall the clock, snipe with a move from Pidgeot, and then hope that Slowbro is going to be able to take care of the Aurorus. I'm able to successfully bait with a Surf here. Chestnut has a lot of energy, and I'm going to be forced to burn my final shield. Continuing to farm, I'm going for the Ice Beam, just in case my opponent decides to call a bait here. Ice Beam lands onto the Chestnut, but it's not enough damage to KO. That is very unfortunate there. Another reason why I think running Psychic could be nice, because Psychic does get the same type attack bonus, and that actually would have KO'd. Tricky lead in the next match, Pidgeot into Shadow Skuntank. Honestly, Skuntank has neutral to positive matchups against this entire team, so definitely not a fun Pokemon for me to see. I will shield up the Crunch and bait with a Feather Dance, hoping to try and grab a shield, but my opponent reads me like a book and calls the bait. That is not great. They're going to be firing off a debuff charge move here. I've taken a lot of Poison Jab damage. Crunch gets me deep into the red. I'm now going to send in Deoxys, and unfortunately, they have Trevenant in the back. Things just going from bad to worse here. Trevenant gonna fire off the Shadow Ball. That gets Deoxys low. Deoxys is at the back-to-back Psycho Boost, but Trevenant can very comfortably tank both of these moves and farm down. I did save energy on Pidgeot, so I am going to be able to get rid of the Trevenant if they let the Brave Bird through, but I'm still not in a good spot because that Skuntank still has quite a bit of HP remaining. Brave Bird is going to land. My switch clock is not quite up yet. They have Tapu Fini in the back, and yet again, I find myself wishing that I had Psychic. So far, I'm really enjoying Surf on Slowbro. Slowbro might be better suited to more of an Ultra Premier Cup mon, as unfortunately, it does struggle against some of the legendaries like Cresselia and Giratina, but I definitely think that having Psychic could be quite nice, because as you're seeing, I'm encountering a lot of situations where Psychic would be very handy, and Ice Beam not really helping me out a whole lot. My opponent makes a very nice catch of my Surf Bait. That's gonna KO. I send in the Pidgeot. Pidgeot cannot make a move, and I concede the match. Hopping into the final match, leading Pidgeot into Giratina. This is exactly where I want to see Giratina on the team. Opponent save switches into Swampert. I could immediately send in Slowbro, but instead, I'm going to try something a little different. I'm going to stay in with Pidgeot, tank a move, fire off a Feather Dance. I'm going to lower the amount of damage they can do, and then I'm going to send in Slowbro and go for the incredibly aggressive Water Gun farm down. This way, my hope is I'm going to leave with a ton of energy, but not a lot of HP, so I can threaten multiple Ice Beams onto the Giratina. Earthquake lands. That does not do a lot of damage. Slowbro has some pretty decent bulk, and as well, Swampert, of course, is 2 stages debuffed. They go for Earthquake number 2. Slowbro looking for the farm down, but the switch timers are misaligned. Opponent takes advantage of that. They send in Giratina. Ice Beam is going to land. I can't make it to a second Ice Beam, so I'm forced to settle for the Surf. Surf is going to get some chip damage. I'm going to send in Pidgeot. We'll have to see, are they running Ancient Power on this Giratina? They are not. They go for the Dragon Claw. I'm immediately going for the Feather Dance. I need to debuff the amount of damage these Dragon Claws can do for me because I'm rapidly running out of health on Pidgeot. Pidgeot not quite able to farm down. They're able to make it to a last second Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw gets me low. In comes a Shadow Wall Rain. I'm able to save the Pidgeot with a sliver of HP and send in Defense Deoxys. 2 shielded scenario. I would definitely prefer that this was a non-Shadow Wall Rain, as the Shadow Wall Rain, the damage does add up quite a bit more than the regular. They go for Icicle Spear number 2. I'm still trying to hold on to my shields as best as I can. I'm firing off the Rock Slide. That is going to get the shield, and my opponent's in a bit of an uncomfortable spot here. Is this where they're going to use their final shield of the match? Rock Slide is going to KO. Opponent has energy everywhere, though. They're going to send in the Swampert. Swampert has energy, is going to force the first of my 2 shields from the Deoxys. Deoxys goes for the Psycho Boost, but I get sniped by the Giratina, and I'm forced to burn the final shield. Psycho Boost, probably going to be grabbing the final shield from the opponent, and I'm very low HP. I have a Feather Dance stored on the Pidgeot. In comes the Pidgeot. Feather Dance is going to KO. In comes the Swampert. We tank the Mud Shot and get the farm down. And now some final thoughts on XL Kanto Slowbro in the Ultra League with Surf. First off, I do think Surf is a massive upgrade. Slowbro is a Pokemon that basically had 0 viability prior, but giving it Surf, giving it access to that cheaper bait move, does give it a lot more play overall. However, I will say it is probably better suited to more like an Ultra Premier Cup meta, as I mentioned a bit earlier, as the Ultra Premier Cup does tend to be a slightly glassier meta overall, which Slowbro fits in a bit better with. And also Slowbro, definitely not a big fan of Cresselia and Giratina, both of which thankfully are banned in the Ultra Premier Cup. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.